Item 3.1 is a fire prevention program overview by Superior Fire Department Battalion Chief Howard Huber.
Mouse it.
Oh, you don't use a clicker?
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you about our fire inspection program. It's not something I get invitations to talk about very often. It's a really important part of our mission with the fire department, and it's something we kind of do out of sight. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but we put a lot of work into it, and it's something we take seriously. So I look forward to kind of giving everybody a rundown on how we do it. I'm going to start quickly by laying out the legal framework that gives us the authority to do fire inspections. The National Fire Protection Association created a model fire code for municipalities or for states to adopt into law and use as their fire prevention code. So the state of Wisconsin adopted this, and that's what we enforce. They mandate that every jurisdiction in the state of Wisconsin inspect all the buildings in their jurisdiction except for single and two-family residences. They need to be done annually, and they need to conform to the code. Enforcement authority is given to the fire chief, and that is what sets us in motion. So to accomplish this, our Fire Inspection Bureau runs out of headquarters. We have 3 inspectors in there. We have a lead and 2 assistants. We are involved in all kinds of different activities as part of our fire prevention mission. Obviously, we do inspections. That's the main part of what we do. But we also do other things. Fire prevention education is a big piece of our mission. We get into all the schools every year to teach fire prevention to the kids. We're involved in like special events, business licensing. We're busy with quite a bit of stuff coming in all the time, in addition to our regular inspections. This briefly outlines our inspection process. This is an old slide from the initial fire inspector class I took 15 years ago. And I can say in that time, the emphasis has really shifted toward being even more customer oriented than we used to be. Over the last 4 years, we've really worked hard in our organization to provide a good product to the people we're working with. We used to have a lot more conflict, a lot more sort of, I hate to say it, an antagonistic relationship with some of the business community. But we've really worked hard to change that. We have new faces in there now, and we've asked for feedback. We've gotten a lot, and we've taken it into account and made changes, and I'm proud of the product that we're providing the city at this point in time. When we go to do our inspections, basically what we're looking for are any obvious hazards. In a commercial occupancy type thing, we'd be looking for chemicals that are being stored on site. We'd be looking for dangerous like manufacturing processes, changes to the occupancy since we were there last that don't meet the fire protection that's present for that occupancy. In residential inspections, we're looking for things like overloaded power strips in apartment buildings. Simple stuff for the most part, but it makes a big difference in the long run as far as public safety goes. The 3 main things we look for when we're inspecting are exits, detectors, and extinguishers. We have different levels of inspection. Our engine companies, we have 9 of them. They are assigned about 10 to 15 inspections every month that they're responsible for. They're usually our lower hazard inspections. Those would be convenience stores, retail locations, that kind of thing. They're not real complicated. They're not real hazardous. And for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward and simple operation. And these are kind of the things they're looking at. In our more complicated and higher hazard occupancies, we're looking for the same things. It's just more involved. We're looking at exiting, alarm systems, and extinguishment systems. This would include sprinklers. And in going about our business, it's really beneficial to us, not only because we can keep everyone safe as far as the fire code is concerned, but it gives us an opportunity to build relationships out in the community. It gives us an opportunity to be familiar with all the buildings in our response area. We're one of the few entities in the city that has the opportunity to get into every building in the city every year. And we're able to make a lot of contacts with people. We're able to maintain a current list of contacts for these buildings, which really comes in handy when we're responding to fire alarms at 3 in the morning and stuff. A lot of places change tenants, and we're able to keep up with most of that. So when we're out doing our inspections, what that looks like is our inspector, whether it's an engine company, whether it's one of our individual inspectors, they show up, they have an iPad, they will have scheduled with you before they get there. They'll come up and introduce themselves, and they'll ask you to walk around with them as they go through the building. And as you walk through, they will point out any violations that they see, and then they will explain what the violation is, how it can be remediated, and then they will come back for a follow-up inspection if it can't be fixed on site. And this part is what I'm really proud of our inspectors for. There was a time where we were heavy on the citation compliance end of this, more so than we are now. We've done a lot of education with our business owners to where we write up much fewer violations than we used to. It used to be we'd come in and people would be feeling kind of blindsided by us. They didn't know what the expectations were necessarily. Sometimes we'd come inspect and they'd be written up for certain things. We'd come back another time and they'd be written up for something else. That was very frustrating for people. We've really moved toward education, and that's really helped us, and I think it's helped the business owners as well, because they know what to expect when we come in. They know what we're looking for, and for the most part, if they had issues, they've been repaired before we get there. And that's been really positive. I think it's a good model. We have, this year, as you can see there, we had to do 378 follow-up inspections. Usually a follow-up only happens if they don't send us a picture of the repair. They now have an option of taking a picture of the repaired violation, sending that to us, and then we can mark it corrected for them. It makes it easier for them. It's one less time they have to entertain us at their business. So we've had 378 times we had to follow up. In that time, we only had to issue 7 citations. That was in 2021, and we had to obtain 1 warrant to do an inspection. They were at the same property. I'm proud of the fact that we're able to get compliance without having to wield the hammer, so to speak. And it takes a lot of extra work, a lot of extra time, and a lot of relationship building, but it's worth it. These are our three inspectors that do all the work. These guys are 3 of the most dedicated people on the fire department. They really care about this. They believe in our mission and the importance of what they're doing. This is Dan Sertich. He's our lead fire inspector. Brandon Cardenas, he handles a lot of our licensing and commercial inspections. And this is David Rosa. He's one of our newer firefighters, and he does all of our residential inspections. These guys, they're regular firefighters. They work on the truck. They work a 4896 schedule like the rest of the guys do. When we have adequate staffing on the rigs, then they're assigned inspection duties during business hours. And they're paid the regular firefighter wage plus a 4% specialist pay. It's a lot of commitment, a lot of responsibility for these guys. Typically when there's a catastrophic fire, the first person that is held to account after the fact is the fire inspector that was last there. And the guys understand the liability that's involved. They understand the responsibility they're taking. And they do it because they believe it, believe in what we're doing. So, yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to just, recognize them for their hard work. So aside from the inspection piece, another part of our fire prevention mission is working with building inspection on new construction stuff. Enforcement and education are two of the main components of our program, but the third is engineering. And one of the big things we can do to tip the scales in our favor when we have a fire is to have engineered safety into it before we get there. And so we're very involved in the building process to make sure that everything is in place before we get called on a fire to help keep that fire in check, prevent it from happening in the first place, or at least make it as safe as possible for us to fight it. And what that looks like is that when we have a new business project, a new construction project come into town, our inspectors will be at the pre-construction meeting where they'll lay out right away what the expectations are, what the requirements are in Superior from our end. And then as the project goes along, they'll be staying in contact with those folks to make sure everything's going to plan. Every commercial building requires a sprinkler system, a fire suppression system of some kind. Those plans have to be approved by the state. And once they're approved, it's our responsibility to make sure that they're actually installed to the standard that the state approved. So our inspectors are out doing site inspections and reviewing those plans to make sure everything is done properly. And then before those systems are put into place, we have to witness their testing, and then they can be commissioned and we can issue a certificate of occupancy. Requires a lot of coordination with building inspection, which can be tricky because of our guys. Their work schedule is out of sync with the rest of the world, but they do the best they can. This is an example of a sprinkler plan drawing. We spent a lot of time agonizing over these, and it's an example of what they'd be looking for when they do a site inspection on new construction. They're just making sure, all this stuff meets the specs in the plan approval. Here's an example of a system being tested for commissioning. Here's an example of what happens if you don't do fire inspections. This is not in Superior. One thing I wanted to note, we're very involved with building inspection during the construction process. And up until the point that the certificate of occupancy is issued, and at that point, we own that building for the remainder of its life. We're responsible for keeping it up to code, to making sure it continues to meet those standards for the rest of its time. We work pretty hard in the front end of this, knowing that we're going to be responsible for that building and making sure it's compliant for the remainder of its lifespan. And I found this neat old picture in the archives. This is one of the old crews in Superior out doing inspections. Yeah, it's been part of our mission for a long time, and that's what I had for you this evening. I'd love to answer any questions you have if there's still time.
There is.
Presentation. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
There is time if there are questions or comments. If not, I just want to personally say thank you, Battalion Chief Huber, not just for coming tonight, but of course, please pass our thanks to all of your fire inspectors. It really is kind of an underappreciated part of the city, but from my office anyways, I don't think we've ever substantiated a complaint against fire inspection.
Great, glad to hear. I hope we can keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Have a good night.
Thank you.